Let's face it, the world pretty much runs on data now. And because of that, the demand for people who can actually understand it and pull insights from it, it's higher than ever. But for a lot of us, the idea of learning these complex programming languages, well, it's a huge roadblock. And that brings up a really big question we're going to dig into today.
So is writing line after line after line of code really the only way to uncover those hidden gems in a dataset? For a long time, the answer was basically yes, and that kept a lot of really curious, smart people on the sidelines. But what if there's another way in?
You know, traditionally, you just couldn't get into data science without a really strong coding foundation. It was non-negotiable. But things are changing. A whole new wave of tools is popping up, and they're offering a much more visual, much more intuitive path to exploring data. And that brings us to one of the most powerful tools in this new wave. It's called Orange Data Mining. It's an open source platform that honestly offers a much more accessible path into the whole world of data science.
So what is Orange exactly? Well, think of it like a set of digital building blocks, kind of like Legos, but for data. It's a visual toolkit that's really designed for everybody. We're talking students, teachers, even experts like biologists or marketers who know their field inside and out, but aren't necessarily coders. And it's all built around this super simple drag and drop idea.
When you first open up Orange, what you see is this, a blank canvas. This is your digital workspace. This is where you're going to visually build your entire analysis from start to finish, piece by piece.
Now, those building blocks I mentioned, in Orange, they have a name, widgets. Just think of each widget as its own little specialized tool. It's a small computational unit that does one specific job, whether that's loading your data, processing it, or creating a cool visualization.
And what can these widgets do? Oh man, pretty much the whole shebang. They can read your data from a file, show it to you in a table, create all kinds of charts and graphs, and even build complex stuff like predictive models. It's basically the entire data analysis pipeline, just broken down into these simple, manageable blocks.
Okay, enough theory. Theory's great, but let's get our hands dirty. We're going to build a really simple workflow right now just to see how ridiculously fast you can go from having some raw data to a real, actual insight. Okay, check this out. It really is this easy. First, you grab a file widget, drop it on the canvas. You double-click it to load a data set. We'll use the classic Iris data. Next, you grab a data table widget. Now for the magic, you just drag a line to connect the two. That's it. Open up that data table and boom, there's your data, all laid out for you. And this brings us to the core concept, the secret sauce, really. These widgets aren't just sitting there by themselves. They talk to each other. When you connect them, data flows from one to the next. And if you make a change in one of the early widgets, that change automatically flows down the entire chain. This lets you do some incredibly powerful, real-time, interactive analysis. All right, so that was kind of the hello world of Orange. But let's try something a little more interesting, using a real-world data set about socioeconomic stuff. Let's ask a specific question. Can we find the countries where people tend to live really long lives and also spend a lot of years in school? So we can feed our data into what's called a scatter plot widget. This will help us see the relationship between life expectancy and years of school. Now, to answer our question, we don't write some complex query. Nope. We just click and drag our mouse right on the chart, and we select that little cluster of countries up in the top right corner. And this is where that interactivity just shines. The second you make that selection, that little subset of data points gets sent to a new data table. And instantly, you have your answer, a filtered list of just those countries, like Australia, Germany, and Canada. No code, just insight. I mean, this all seems pretty amazing, right? It feels like magic. But it's really important to have a balanced view here. Visual tools are incredibly powerful, for sure, but they aren't meant to be a complete replacement for traditional coding. They each have their own strengths and their own weaknesses.
At the end of the day, it's all about understanding the trade-offs. If you look at this comparison, visual tools are clear winners when it comes to accessibility and speed. They are fantastic for just getting started, for testing out ideas really quickly. But traditional coding, that gives you almost limitless flexibility and the kind of scalability you need for massive, super complex systems. It's not about which one is better, it's about which one is the right tool for the job you're trying to do.
So where's all of this going? What does the future look like? Well, the line between these two worlds, the visual tools and the pure code, it's actually starting to get a little blurry, and that's creating some really exciting possibilities. You know, the most effective solution, moving forward, is probably going to be a hybrid one. What's so cool about tools like Orange is that they're often extensible. You can actually stick your own Python scripts right into a visual workflow. So you get the speed and the intuition of the visual interface, but you combine it with the limitless power of code. You really get the best of both worlds.
And this is bigger than just professional data scientists. Think about the impact on education. Visual tools are truly democratizing data science. They make these really complex ideas feel approachable. They give learners a hands-on way to connect the theory to the practice, and that's helping to train a whole new generation of data-literate thinkers.
Which leads us with a final thought to chew on. As these tools get more powerful, more accessible, you have to wonder, is the next groundbreaking data discovery, that next world-changing insight, is it going to come from a perfectly written line of code or from the simple, intuitive click of a mouse? The answer is probably both, and that's exactly what makes the future of data so exciting.